Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round two coverage of my games from the 2017 Western Class Championship. In round two was played Saturday morning. Round one was Friday night. At the beginning of round two, I was feeling pretty good, had a decent night's sleep, and I thought I had played pretty well in round one. I ended up losing that game, but well, it was it had some interesting moments, and I didn't do too many horrible blunders. Not like my previous tournament. So I was feeling okay at this point. For my round two game, I had the black pieces, and my opponent was a young man with a rating of 1820, and my rating for this tournament was 1795. Okay, so he kicked off with d4. I went knight f6. He went knight f3. So this knight f3 move, already this I'm a little bit annoyed because he's not playing the main line. The main lines here, is the main line is pawn to c4. I guess knight f3 is the second choice, but it introduces a whole bunch of very safe and solid systems for white. Maybe the London system, maybe the Kali system. Anyway, nothing that I have anything exciting to play against. So these sometimes turn into kind of dull games. Well, that's why I was feeling a little bit annoyed already. I played d5, and indeed my opponent does go bishop to f4, the London system. So I play e5. It's the main move here. He goes e3. I play c5, which is the main move, and he goes e3. And now I play an unusual move. Like I said, maybe I was a little bit annoyed, but also I had a good experience recently in a blitz game playing against an opponent who was also trying to play one of these solid setups with white. Let's see, he was going for a stonewall, I think, but he ended up in a Kala system. Anyway, and the move I played in that game was bishop g4, and so I wanted to try it again here and see if it would work against the London system. So I played this. Let's go back. What I normally play and what the main line is here is develop the knight, and well, we'll see why this is a good move. Let's see. He plays c3 is how it typically goes because you've put more pressure on the center, and white's objective is just to have a very solid center in this opening. E6 to defend the pawn, because now there was a threat of taking and holding onto it with b4. Knight bd2 and bishop d6 opposing the dark squared bishop. And I've played many games from this position. It's not a bad position for black. It's pretty equal, but it's hard to get anything really interesting going on. So in this game I played bishop g4. I think next game I will go back to playing in the solid way that I normally play with knight c6. Although this is not a bad move if you look at it with a chess engine, but it introduces a couple of lines here. And my opponent didn't play the best move here, so it didn't cause me any troubles in the game. But looking at it afterwards, there's an interesting line white has right in this position, which is to bring the bishop out with check. Bishop b5 check, and knight bd7 to block, and then this pawn is hanging on c5 because the knight is pinned. So taking e6 to try and round that pawn up. Also, a natural move to open up lines for this bishop. And playing e6 after the bishop's outside the pawn chain. Now white can play b4, and so you have one of these positions where white's just snagged a pawn, and black plays for compensation and trying to undermine the pawn. The chess engine thinks black is fine here, but this is not the kind of position that I would like to play. Actually, white's pieces look pretty active here, in addition to white being a pawn up. So in spite of the chess engine opinion, I'm not going back to this bishop g4 move, just because of that line, not because of what happened in the game. Let's see, in the game he just played c3, which is often the case. If someone is going for a London system and you play something a little bit out of the ordinary, sometimes they will just go for their standard setup anyway without paying much attention. And then here I went with e6, defending the pawn. So if he takes, I can take back right away. It's a typical response to this c3 move to play e6, because c3 does threaten to grab and hold on to the pawn. But in this particular position, it's actually a little more accurate to play knight c6 right away rather than e6. And again, it has to do with these checks on the diagonal and the fact that my bishop is here outside the pawn chain. So for example, e6, well, a6 is what I did play, and he played knight bd2. but he could have right away played this interesting line with bishop takes b8. Probably not something that he thought about at all. And however I could take with either the queen or the rook. Say we'll give the rook takes as an example. Then he's got this queen a4 check, and it's kind of messed up a little bit. I can't play the pawn forward. His bishop is on that square, so I have to move my king or move my queen and allow my king position to get my king to get drawn out towards the center. Let's see. The chess engine says the best line here after bishop takes on b8 is to take on f3, and then queen a4 check. You can throw in the check, block with knight to d7, bring the knight back to block, and then bishop takes a7. He can grab a pawn here. That looks a little bit cheeky. Well, I can grab a pawn too. And let's see, what's the material here? He's a piece up, but I guess I have this bishop in a pin, and I'm going to round it up. Anyway, that's a chess engine line. So there's more going on behind the scenes in these positions, and you should really think about them. My opponent was playing kind of quickly and just going for a setup. And of course, I'm a little bit at fault too, because I was playing these moves without thinking of some of these tactical possibilities as well. Anyway, he went knight bd2, and I went knight c6 finally. That's why knight c6 earlier would have been the better move. It just stops these checks on the diagonal. And now things are back to pretty normal. This is basically an even position. He goes bishop d3. I went h6. Probably not a necessary move, but sometimes a queen comes to c2 with a threat to take that pawn if the knight has moved away. And it does help control this square, so that I might want to bring my bishop out and force a trade, and he can't slide into the g5 square if I've got it controlled with h6. So it's not a bad move, but maybe not the most accurate. He goes for the pin now. He goes bishop b5, a pin on this side. And I think this shows interesting play. I think at this point my opponent was starting to think. And one of the things white should be thinking about in this position is, black has done something different by putting his bishop over on the king side. And so maybe white should really be playing on the queen side, which is now lacking one of its defenders. And in particular, starting with this pin. And not a bad idea. And I was starting to worry a little bit. This London system bishop is annoyingly controlling some of these squares, so I can't... the most natural defensive move, like queen c7, is out. If I play something like queen d7, he has knight to e5. After his queen comes out, he has knight to e5, chasing my queen away. So a little bit awkward here. And I decided to resolve it right away with a6, just kind of force some action there. The chess engine says, actually, if I just defend with rook to c8, that's a nice defensive move. It just kind of holds things together on the queen side, and I should be okay. And it's a little better than a6. a6, well, it actually poses a few problems for me. He takes, I take, and then he brings his queen out. And, he's just starting to pile up pressure on this pinned pawn. And once again, he has the idea of knight e5 now that the queen is no longer, now that the knight is no longer pinned against the queen. The queen's come away from d1, so unpinning the knight and putting pressure on this pawn, which is pinned, and threatening knight to e5. But, well, I'm still okay here. I have just enough time to get my act together. I play queen b6. He goes knight e5. Although I am kind of falling behind in development. I still haven't developed my kingside bishop, and I haven't castled. So white is getting a little something going with these attacking moves on the queen side. But I hold the position together with the rook to c8, and he plays knight to b3. And now this is a very interesting moment here. I actually have a good move in this position, so knight to b3 might be slightly inaccurate. But first, to explain his idea, he's just trying to pile up. He can play knight to a4, and he's got 3 pieces on this pawn, and it's difficult to defend. So I have to do something fairly well, I have to do something immediately. I can't just kind of hang around and do a nothing move like developing or I'll gain the bishop or I'll wind up in trouble. So anyway, if you want to think about this position for a while, I think it's kind of interesting. There's different ideas here, but there's one move that's best for black, and see if you can find the best move for black and figure out the sequence. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. I didn't play this move because of a certain line that I saw and I didn't quite figure it out correctly. But the move is c4, and I definitely thought about this move. It's kind of a natural one, and hopefully you guys thought about it too. It's kicking the knight, and it's leaving this b pawn undefended here. And what I was worried about was, what if his knight hops into a5, like he's planning to gang up on this pawn, and then after I take, he can simply castle, which in fact is the best move here. And now I thought I might be in trouble here, because he can bring one rook or another to the b file and chase my queen. The queen has no squares. So I have to do something immediately, but it turns out in this position, this is what I missed, in this position I have the move that saves everything. So I picked up a pawn, and then it's my turn after he castles, defending his rook, which is necessary to defend his rook. Then I can just drop my queen back to b5. And this threatens his queen. His queen is just hanging. And one point I missed, well, I really didn't think about this queen b5 move too much at this point. But one thing I missed is that the queen has no square it can go to, which defends the knight. So this forces the trade. That's what I was not seeing. If the queen goes back to c7 to avoid the queen trade, I can just grab the knight. And there's no other square. Like I said, there's no square the queen can go to that defends the knight. So the queen trade is forced. And well, I've just snagged a pawn. And I am a little bit behind in development, but at least I have something to show for it. And actually black is better in that position. So c4 is a good move here. And knight a5 is not the best response. His best response is actually to go in with the exchange. To start with this exchange. Knight takes g4, take the bishop, I take back, and then just retreat the knight back to d2. And now it's too dangerous actually now for me to grab this pawn. Is danger the right word? Yeah, well, it is dangerous. That's right. His knight is on d2, and it's defending the b1 square. So after queen takes, he can play rook to b8 immediately and trap my queen. Actually, there's a c3 pawn I could go after. Anyway, it's the chess engine gives bishop e7 as the best move here. So, and apparently white is holding things together. Maybe queen back to c7 or something to actually defend the b pawn at some point. So anyway, that's an interesting sequence that I thought about the c4 move, and I thought about taking, hitting his rook, and then I saw he could castle and nearly trap my queen, and I didn't spot queen b5 as an idea in that position. But in this position, if I just move my queen away, this pawn is falling, so I do need to still do something drastic, and so I played queen b5 right here. So I had an awareness of this queen b5 idea, forcing a queen trade and saving the pawn. Just didn't notice that it applied in that other line. Anyway, so I played queen b5 here. He takes, I take, and then he just goes in for a bunch of trades. So I think all of this is about even. That c4 move would have given an advantage to black, so that was my chance to get an edge in the game. He plays in this kind of really simple fashion. He just takes everything off. He takes off the bishop, he grabs the pawn, and I take back, and then he grabs that bishop too. And then he just plays h3, kicking my knight. So, as white, I would never have gone for that sequence. I think basically you're just going into an endgame where it's dead even. In fact, I thought maybe black was a little bit better. Here, let's put on a couple more moves. I went knight f6. Maybe he had looked ahead this far. Bishop e5. He does seem to get a little pressure here on my knight. I play king e7, and it's white's move. And So I was thinking about this position that I'm in pretty good shape. It's true that he has a bishop versus a knight in the endgame, and there are pawns on both sides of the board. So that is a point in white's favor, because a bishop can be stronger than a knight in the endgame, especially when pawns are on both sides of the board. But my pawns are already, a lot of them are already on light squares, so his bishop is not going to find too many targets. And my knight, it seems like I should be able to unwind my knight easily enough, and his rook is not yet in the game, so there's no, he has no edge in development or activity particularly, and so I thought, I would have enough time to unwind the slightly awkward knight position, and then I would just be slightly better. And in fact, looking at it with the chess engine, black is better in every line except one. So there's one move that white has here that gives white a slight edge. Now there's no more than a slight edge to either side, but well, I have to give my opponent some credit here that he found the one move that gives white the slight edge. So if you want to pause the video here again, see if you can find the move for white in this position. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. The move that gives an edge to white and that I hadn't really thought about is a4. Just push that pawn forward. It's a logical move, so hopefully some of you thought of that. Undermine these advanced pawns that black has. Try and make use of the queenside pawn majority. It's a very logical move. It's just interesting that every other move black has an advantage, and after this move white has a slight edge. So what should I play here? The best move by far, well, not by far, it's only a matter of small degrees here. The best move here is rook a8. Basically the idea is that after he takes, I take back with the rook and I try and keep the a file closed, try and keep this rook from coming in. And yeah, I think that's a good idea. Notice that when I take here, it hits the b pawn, so he has to do something about that, probably pushing it forward. And well, maybe I can think of pushing my pawn forward and trying to liquidate on the a file before he has a chance to castle. So rook a8 was the best move there. I really didn't think of that move. It's kind of counterintuitive. Rook a8, it looks like you're walking into a pin. You are walking into a pin, in fact. So he would be threatening to just take on b4, except you have this rook. I guess you have to worry about what would happen with this move. I didn't look at this with the chess engine. But yeah, the idea is you can just drop the rook down here and defend. That's the idea here. So you unpin that pawn. So now if he takes, you can take back, and you're still contesting the a file. So anyway, yeah, rook a8 looks like the kind of move that might get you into trouble, but if you calculate out the sequences, you can see it's okay, and it's actually the best move here because it keeps control of the a file. Anyway, I played the move rook d8, and it's just not as good. It has some ideas. One idea is that it controls this square, so he's not going to fork my king and my rook with his bishop. And the other idea is that it controls this square, so that if he tries to get some checks on the second rank, I can defend along the second rank there with the rook. So he just castles here. And things are all okay here. Maybe I didn't play the most accurate move, but I should still be able to hold this position. But my next move is a big mistake, and I really, this is just a move that was played too casually. I guess the game had descended so quickly from a somewhat tense position on the queen side into an endgame where it seemed to me there was almost nothing going on, that I just moved a little too casually. Now I do have to be careful here. Let me show some tries. For example, g6. g6 is not a particularly good move here. You can start with bishop to d4, hitting my my rook. I mean, g6 is a move I want to play just to liberate my knight and get another pawn on a light square. So it's a desirable move. But let's see, he can chase the rook around. Let's see, the rook drops back, takes, and then he can come in with this rook check. Let's see, I block with the knight, and then he can bring this rook over. And, maybe I can hold this position, but, white has certainly gotten very active here, and my position seems a bit awkward. and this pawn is going to come under fire. So it seems like g6 here. The immediate g6 is just not a good move at this point, although maybe playable. The best move, once again, is rook to a8 for the same reason as before. That's just the way to play this position. The move I played is rook to c6, and before I put it on the board, maybe you can spot what's wrong with it. Why is rook c6 a blunder? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. First of all, the idea. What was the idea with rook c6? The idea was, I noticed that this rook could never get behind the b pawn because his bishop is controlling that diagonal. So I was defending along the sixth rank here. Well, I couldn't come all the way back to, I couldn't come all the way down to c7 because his bishop controls that square. That is kind of an annoying piece there. So my idea was to go like this, rook to c6, and then get behind the pawn after he exchanges. So I played this, he took, I took back, and at this point I realized I can't play this move to get behind the pawn. He attacks, it's his move here, he attacks it, and I was intending here to play rook to b6 to defend it, and of course he just forks my two rooks. So that annoying bishop prevents me from defending that pawn, and in fact it just loses the pawn. So that rook c6 move gives up the pawn. Let's see, so I'm going to lose that anyway. I tried b4 here. Chess Engine likes g6, but this is not an attractive position either. It would just do something like this. This is the Chess Engine line. Just give up this pawn immediately, and he's got a passed pawn over here that's protected once it comes forward. Maybe I can get some counter pressure against it, but he's got an extra pawn. It's a passed pawn. Should be a win for and both his rooks can get into the game. So should be a win for white, and not too difficult. So I thought I'll try and complicate things with b4, but unfortunately this does not work out. Let's see. He took. I played rook to d7 to protect along the 7th rank there. He went to b5. He just starts kicking my pieces around using his pawns and his bishop. See, I block it with the rook. He plays bishop to d4. I drop back with the rook, and he plays b6, just driving that pawn forward. I tried knight e8. I'm finally trying to get my knight into the game. Can come around here to defend the rook, but unfortunately it's not going to work out quite in time. I'm just like one move short of being able to get my king over to help out. Let's see, he brings his other rook in, and I played f6. I wanted to blunt the bishop, maybe kick it off. I didn't want to give up another pawn too. Also, the bishop was looking at this pawn, and I wanted to be able to move the knight. He played rook to a7, opposing my rook. I played knight d6. He went bishop to c5, and I went e5. This is what I meant. I'm like one move short. If I had one more move, I could get my king here unpinning, and I think this kind of holds everything together, but I don't get that extra move. He takes right away, and at this point I realize I'm lost. Maybe you can figure out the sequence that white wins with in this position. One last little chess puzzle for you in this game. How does this game end? And yeah, what's the tactic at the end of the game that wins it? Okay, it's my turn now. I have to take the rook. Yeah, I'm giving you the answer away now, so pause the video if you want to think about it some more. I have to take the rook. Otherwise, I'm a rook down. That's certainly losing. He brings another rook in, and then I bring my king over. And, once again, I'm just like one step too far away. And the winning move is bishop takes knight, removing the defender of my rook. And, of course, his rook is defended. I can't take the rook and then take the bishop because he gets a queen. If I take the bishop immediately, then I lose my rook. So anyway, that's the point at which I resigned. He's got an easy win from this point. So interesting game, a little bit disappointing. I think I did okay up until that one point. It was just like one slack move, that one rook c6 move, where yeah, it's this move, rook to c6, where I had plenty of time. This is not a this is only move 20, so it's not a time trouble issue. This is an issue of not taking the game seriously enough. Probably starting out with the fact that I was slightly annoyed that my opponent was playing the London system, and I was further annoyed by the fact that he went into this drawish and somewhat dull endgame, and as a result of that, played a careless move and got appropriately punished. Okay, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will be back with round 3 coverage. See you then. Bye.